The mic picked up everything, the clink of ice, the scrape of chairs, and my wife's voice when she said, "A real man would have closed that deal. Honey, smile for the camera." Phones lifted. We were at her friend's rooftop launch, a glass and concrete stage above the city. Behind us, a neon sign read, "Hustle harder like a dare." I kept my face still. Rage wanted to stand up, flip a table, and hand the night my bones. I gave the night nothing. I moved one step back just outside the ring of light and took the drink from a passing tray. The lime touched my palm like a cold coin. She laughed into the mic, aiming the joke at my chest. "He's sweet," she added, "but he's not built for the kill. Be a real man, babe." A few guests made the sound people make when they want blood without owning the knife. Someone yelled, "Shots!" I looked at my wife, Kara, and said, calm as a receipt, "Real men don't perform. They build." The line slid into the night and stuck. A head turned. A camera lowered. She blinked like a flash went off inside her skull. I nodded once to the DJ, a man I'd paid in full last month when the event manager forgot. He read the cue in my eyes and brought the music up, soft. Noise washed over the moment like clean water. I walked to the edge of the roof where wind lifted the edges of the cheap banner and dialed one number. "Priya," I said when my accountant picked up, "send the notice to Kara's email now. Keep the CC to me." "Copy," she said. "The opt-in is already on file." I put my phone away and watched the city move like money. Steady, blind, loud when it hits metal. I had not come unarmed. For 3 months I had watched patterns, tested hinges, and packed quiet tools, contracts, timestamps, a soft smile that hid sharper math. When Kara told me to be a real man, she opened a door I'd been building behind her back, not to cheat her, but to protect the parts of me she sharpened her jokes on. She turned from the mic and saw me by the glass. Her face carried the look a person gets when the wind changes and the party keeps pretending it's warm. She started toward me with the walk she used when she wanted to win the camera back. I met her halfway. "You meant it as a joke," I said. "It was a vibe," she said, light, teeth bright. "Don't be sensitive. Sensitive is how you feel pressure before pipes burst." I smiled, "And I fixed the pipes months ago." Her brow pulled. She reached for my arm like she planned to steer me into a photo. "Come take a shot." "I already did," I said. "You'll feel it in about 3 minutes." Her phone buzzed in her hand. Buzzed again. She glanced down, eyes scanning, mouth flattening. In the mirror above the landing, I saw a man with quiet shoulders and a plan. Feeling is gasoline. I capped it. Watches she'd tied to her brand. Was built on an investor whose money came with clauses she skipped. I had read those clauses. I had opted out of joint liability. I had elected her to hold her own separate entrepreneurship like she bragged she did. Separate accounts, separate taxes, separate risk. "What is this?" she hissed. "The accountant sent you the update," I said. "Per your election, the return, the schedule, the statement from the investor's lawyer you said looked fine. You did this here?" Her voice trembled, then hardened. "Petty." "No," I said. "Right on time." "Be a real man," she said again, small and mean. "Real men put their names on contracts they can pay," I said. I drew in a slow breath and felt the city air clean my ribs. "And real millionaires make money that doesn't need a stage." She stared down at the screen again, blinked like it stung, then lifted her chin. "You won't leave," she said. "You like the view." I glanced past her, at a skyline I'd mapped into tiny rights. Options, IP, vesting, terms. "Tonight," I said, "the view likes me." I walked away before the scene could grow teeth, down the service stairs that smelled like bleach and secrets. In the mirror above the landing, I saw a man with quiet shoulders and a plan. Feeling is gasoline. I capped it. The first crack showed up 2 months earlier as a voice memo Kara left on our counter like a dare. "Babe, I said yes to the watch deal. The money is crazy. Paperwork is boring. Sign what Priya sends." She put a kissy face at the end. her way of frosting a brick. I listened twice. Then I did what boring men do when they plan to survive a blaze someone else calls soft light. I read. The investor's note looked friendly, short, simple, fast. Under the grin, it bit. The money came with a convertible clause that let the investor claim ownership in all associated marks and subscriber lists. If the revenue missed targets, all associated marks. That meant her logo, her handles, even the newsletter list we'd grown in the kitchen at midnight. Worse, the default liability tried to call our joint assets a pot for their ladle. I took a pen and drew boxes. One around her brand, one around our joint account. One around my day job, product manager in a company that said family while cutting staff like coupons. Another box around my side projects. A newsletter called Narrow Wins, and a small code tool I wrote in the hours no one sees. The tool that cleaned invoice data and flagged hidden late fee traps in contracts. I had customers for it now, quiet ones. My name sat on the LLC like a seal. I called Priya. We elect separate, I said. For real. Her business, her tax, her liability. Keep my IP ring-fenced. Make sure the state filing on the LLC is clean and my code license is not assignable without my written consent. That will make your household tense, she said. It will make my household honest, I said. Do you want her to know you're doing this? I want her to know I listened the first 20 times she said she did everything alone, I said. I'm giving her the gift of being right. Silence hummed. Then, okay, Priya said. Send me her investor note. Do not sign anything. I forwarded the PDF with a subject line. Read the teeth. She replied 3 minutes later with the sort of humor only accountants get away with. This note is a jaw. While Kara filmed unboxings and practiced her real talk, voice about building empires, I sat at the kitchen table building an escape that looked like a ledger. I copied our prenup into a new file and highlighted the parts she preferred to forget. Separate business debts don't become joint songs when the beat drops. I added an addendum about IP rights I had drafted with a lawyer named Torres who wore boots and patience. We filed it. I didn't hide it. I set the file in the Dropbox we shared and named it in plain English, IP, Aiden, non-assignable. Kara never clicked. Quiet teaches you to hear your own pulse. Mine sounded like the sound a wire makes when you pull it tight, humming, steady, wanting a post that won't move. At work, my boss, Nolan, announced that our project would be sunset in 3 months. That meant, do double work while I cut your team. He had a jaw like a shovel and a laugh shaped like a loan. He took credit for work I handed him like a wrapped gift. You are my glue, he told me in front of the team. Don't ask for paint. The next day, I added a column to my sheet. Runway. I made a plan for what happens if I leave. What happens if I'm pushed? What happens if I take the code tool and step out of the elevator before it drops? I wasn't dreaming. I was drafting. Meanwhile, the watch investor sent Kara samples and a beige NDA. She signed it without reading. I didn't. I sent Priya a photo of the signature. Time-stamp that, she said, and photograph the envelope. I did. We weren't prepping a fight. We were building a museum of facts. At night, Kara called me cute when I asked for her shipping receipts and annoying when I asked for her ad invoices. Real men don't nag, she said. They trust. Real men read, I said. She rolled her eyes and posted a story about haters. I stopped explaining. Instead, I put speed bumps where cliffs were. I moved our joint savings into a high-yield account under both names with withdrawal alerts that pinged both phones. I reduced my automatic contribution to her brand fund to 10%, then turned it off when she moved money into a fun budget labeled with a fire emoji. I replaced it with a standing order to fund my LLC and a separate boring brokerage account that only liked index funds and naps. The day I found the deceit that cut the deepest did not involve money. It was Tuesday. I came home early to surprise her with takeout and 2 coffee mugs from our first road trip. She was in the living room, speakers up, on a call with her mother and a PR friend. "Aiden is nice," she said, "but he slows me. I need someone who makes the world move. Investors like velocity. He makes lists." I stood in the hallway and watched our wedding photo look at me from the shelf like it didn't know who I was now. I set the food down and folded the mugs into the bag. I didn't walk in. I walked out. I ate noodles in the park and wrote a short line in my phone. Never again try to outrun a person who calls your brakes fear. That night, I stopped sleeping in our bed. I took the couch with my laptop and the code tool that had started humming in the world, subscriptions climbing in small clicks. I wrote an update called Claw, a module that could spot poisoned clauses in gig contracts and turn them red. I pushed it live. Within a week, 4 mid-sized firms asked if they could use it to audit their own vendor contracts. I charged politely. They paid on time. I watched numbers grow in a way that did not need an audience. Then came the rooftop, the mic, and the sentence that tried to make my ribs a cage. Be a real man. She gave the final shove. My plan already had traction. Her line gave it a headline. She thought she was the narrator. She was a line in my backstory. After the rooftop, the investor called. He didn't call Kara. He called me. The name on the mortgage and the day job and the number he found through the property records. He spoke in a voice that smiled when it stole. "Your wife's brand is underperforming," he said. "We can convert the note." "We elected separate," I said. "Per filings on date." He sighed like a principal. "That won't protect the household list." "It will protect my IP," I said. "It will protect the joint account." "It will protect me from your habit of using vague words like associated to grab whatever your net hits when the tide goes out." "Be reasonable," he said. "I'm being precise," I said. "Reasonable lives in the middle of a contract. Precise lives on the edge." He tried again. "We could bring her under our management." "Which means what?" I asked. "You rent her face and burn her list." "She's not doing you any favors," he said, low. "And you aren't doing yourself any," I said lower. "If you try to reach into my LLC or my code, I will sell your emails to the story the district attorney likes." A quiet breath. "You don't sound like the nice one." "I stopped auditioning," I said. "Send her your conversion letter. CC Priya, CC Torres, and CC my silence." He sent it. Priya replied with law like a scalpel. Torres followed with a letter that used the words scope and unenforceable like hammers. The investor pivoted to amicable resolution. I watched the pivot and saved the emails. Kara posted a sunrise and a caption about closed doors. She had the decency not to mention me. Good. We were, at last, dealing with nouns. I moved out 2 weeks later. Not with a scene, but with boxes that had labels and a system. My friend Omar offered his spare room for a month. I took 2. Kara didn't cry. She didn't ask me to stay. She texted a heart emoji and a message that said, "We need space." I replied, "We need a calendar," and sent her the schedule Priya had set for the tax payment she owed due to her election. It wasn't revenge, it was order. She liked the word boss. This was me respecting it. At work, Nolan tried to claim my code tool grew within the company. He sent a memo to legal with my name in a sentence that tried to leash me. I responded with a neat packet. My LLC filing dates, my Git logs, my invoices, the Slack messages where he wrote, "That's your cute side project," with a smiley face. Torres sent a letter that used the phrase prior and separate 3 times. Legal called me in and offered clarity. They released claim with a line that said, "Company disclaims any interest in Aiden's external code or LLC." I shook hands. I didn't gloat. I moved the code to a separate server, backed up to a drive Omar called the Ark. "Nolan will be mad," Omar said. "Nolan can start a podcast," I said. He likes mics. I left the company at the end of my bridge contract with a binder that even Nolan could read and a bank transfer that landed clean. I filed my resignation at 9 a.m., packed at 9:15, and was at Torres's office by 10 to sign the last paper that put my code under a trust if I got hit by a bus. Across the hall, a young designer signed a prenup with her partner and cried from relief. I handed her a tissue. "Make it boring now," I said, "so it never turns exciting against you later." She laughed through her nose. "What do you do?" "I make clause for contracts," I said. "Cool," she said. "My agency needs that. Money is shy when you chase it. It walked over when I watered the grass." A mid-sized marketplace asked if I could build Claw into their vendor portal. A streaming platform wanted a simplified version to scan influencer deals for under 25 creators they kept burning accidentally. I charged a number that made my stomach sweat and my spine feel formal. They wired it the same day. Priya sent a text. "Welcome to Q3. When Kara finally called, her voice sounded unfamiliar. No gloss, no show. "They want my list," she said. "Then don't give it," I said. "They said they'll sue," she said. "Then they'll sue," I said. "And lose where it matters." "I don't have your calm," she said. "Calm isn't a trait," I said. "It's a stack. It's files." Silence. Then smaller. "Did you ever love me?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "Enough to build exits for both of us." She didn't speak. Our shared past rustled like paper in a drawer. "I need to sell," she said at last. "The brand, the warehouse, not the list. Will you look at the terms?" "Send them to Priya and Torres," I said. "CC me, I'll read." She sent. The buyer was another investor with a nicer font. The terms were cleaner. The price was fair if she gave up the list. We negotiated to sell the logo and inventory only, leave the list dark for 6 months, and pay off the convertible note. She signed. She cried. She posted one last video at a kitchen island I had wiped 100 times. "I learned," she said. "No hashtags, comments off." For the first time, I believed her. I moved into a one-bedroom that overlooked a real tree. I kept the things that held me. The coffee mug with a chip on the rim that told me where to stop. The small weight set that taught my hands to shake and then stop. The bookshelf with the bottom row devoted to boring heroes. Tax guides, legal pads, manuals with tables. My phone stopped barking. My mornings turned into bricks I could stack and stand on. When the first million hit, it did not look like fireworks. It looked like my striped dashboard quietly changing digits. "Withdraw?" it asked. I didn't. I moved a piece to taxes, a piece to salaries for 2 junior devs, a piece to a reserve account called Cold Water, and a piece to what Torres told me to call a donor-advised fund in case I wanted to turn some revenue into policy later. I bought nothing that needed a parking ticket to feel valuable. I did buy a chair with a back that loved me. Omar came over with takeout and stared at the screen. "Dude," he said softly. "You did it." "I didn't," I said. "We did. Priya, Torres, the librarian, the bus driver who told me schedules are love, my grandmother who kept ledgers." He picked up the mug with the chip and held it up. "To boring." "To boring," I said. The reversal hit like rain and then sunshine. Kara's mother, Patrice, called to invite me to a reconciliation dinner. I knew the script. She would paint me as stubborn but salvageable and Kara as wise but rushed. Then she'd bring up a new project. A real man. Mentorship fund tied to a sponsor who wanted to buy my tool for pennies and wrap it in their logo. I went anyway. I wore a jacket that didn't apologize. The restaurant had soft light and hard chairs. Patrice smiled with her teeth. "You look different," she said. "I sleep," I said. Kara sat across from me and looked like someone who had used all her tears on the correct days. "Thank you for reading the sale," she said. "You read it," I said. "I just pointed at verbs." Patrice cleared her throat. "We want to propose a partnership," she announced. A men's initiative. Real Man Labs, you lead, we fund. We'll need your code, of course, and the list of your customers, just for a pilot. She slid a glossy deck across the table. On page 3, someone had mock-upped my tool in a sponsor's colors and called it Real Claw TM. I looked at Kara. She didn't look back at me. I looked at the deck. It made my tool look like a toy. I flipped to the last page. The term sheet was a napkin with numbers. No dates, no caps, no floor. No floor means you fall until you stop moving. I pushed the deck back, slow. No, I said. Patrice's smile thinned. You didn't even... I did, I said. You don't want me. You want my spine, on sale. You want my customers. You want to put your logo on a thing that works and take credit. You want me to be a real man who stands behind you quietly while you hold the check. Aiden, Kara said soft, it could help people. It will help them forget who helped first, I said. No, Patrice leaned in. Be reasonable, she said. A real man. Make sure the deal feeds the work, I said, level. This doesn't. This feeds a panel. Kara looked up then. She held my eyes the way people hold hot cups, careful, aware of burn, still wanting warmth. He's right, she said to her mother. Patrice sat back as if the chair had insulted her. After everything, Kara said. He's right. We ate our food. It tasted like endings you can chew. Patrice left early, ice clinking like anger. Kara stayed. What do you do with your all money? She asked. Pay people, I said. Buy time. Give some to a clinic that helps gig workers fight bad clauses. Sponsor a shelf at the library. I'm saving up for a building. A building? She said. A dull one, I said. With good pipes. She laughed, and the laugh didn't ask anyone to clap. I'm working at a studio, she said. No logo, just work. I thought I needed the stage. We all think we need the stage, I said, until the stage needs us more. We walked to the door. Outside, the night smelled like rain on dust. She held out her hand. I'm sorry, she said, for the mic, for the line, for making you prove what you were already building. I'm not sorry, I said, for the build. She nodded, a small bow to the quiet. Be a real man, she said, soft, not a knife this time, more like a smile. I did, I said, and he turned out boring. Good, she said. Boring is how you keep. We did not fall back in love. We fell into adults. That is a different kind of win. A month later, I bought the building, not a tower. A 3-story brick with a roof that wanted new tar and a basement that smelled like old glue. I wrote a check for the down payment and didn't feel the room tilt. The seller liked my hat and my checklist. You remind me of my father, she said. I smiled. He must have slept. I moved my office into the second floor near a window that framed a tree-like art. I hung one thing. A photo of my grandmother at her porch, ledger on her lap. Under it, I taped my line in my own handwriting. Real men don't perform. They build. People asked for the quote. I told them to take it and turn it into a habit. The first tenant was a clinic that read contracts for free on Wednesdays, funded partly by the donor-advised fund Priya had wrangled. The second was a print shop that made zines and taught teenagers fonts. The third was a small room where the library held pop-up hours. On Fridays, Kara stopped by with coffee for the clinic volunteers. She signed their travel reimbursement slips without trying to make it a story. When the last wire cleared and the deed sat warm in my hand, I stood in the stairwell and listened to the building breathe. It sounded like numbers aligning, like pipes that didn't scream, like boots on wood that knew their weight. I sent Priya a photo of the deed with a single word. Filed. She replied with a lemon and a gavel. I walked outside into ordinary sun. A bus sighed and knelt. A kid helped a stranger with a stroller find the curb. The city, unfilmed, did its job. I tucked the deed into a folder and locked the door to my quiet. Revenge had melted into a life. The man she asked me to be that night on the roof, loud, fast, sharp, had died without ever being born. The man I became paid invoices on time, carried spare pens, and built rooms where other people didn't have to be brave to be safe. On my way home, I passed a shop window with a neon sign that read, "Hustle harder." My reflection didn't hustle. He held. He breathed. He looked like sleep. I texted Kara, "Closed." She sent back, "Proud of your boring." I smiled and wrote, "Boring bought a building." Then I put my phone away and walked into the evening with pockets that didn't rattle, with keys that opened doors I had wired straight, and with a heart that no longer needed a stage to count. I wasn't the man the rooftop wanted. I was the man the ledger loved, and the ledger pays. The first morning in the new building felt like waking inside a ledger that finally balanced. Sun slid across the wood like a ruler. I walked the second-floor hallway with a clipboard, touching door frames the way a pilot taps gauges. The clinic's sign leaned straight. The print shop's press sighed like a polite ox. In the pop-up library room, a kid traced letters on a poster that said, "Know your contract," and asked his friend, "What's jurisdiction?" The friend shrugged. The librarian smiled and jumped in. It sounded like the city learning a new verb. I brewed coffee in the tiny kitchen that used to be a closet and opened the day's stack. A permit renewal for the clinic, an invoice for tar on the roof, a request from the library for a rolling cart. None of it glittered. All of it made me rich in a way you can sleep on. I sent the payments, approved the cart, and called the roofer back to confirm dates. "You sound like a man who knows calendars," he said. "Jobs land better," I answered. By 9, Priya had emailed the Q3 plan with a note. Taxes swept, salaries set, reserve fat, donor fund ready to feed clinics. I replied with 3 words, "You make peace." She wrote back, "I stack it." Torres chimed in next with papers tied to the building trust. She wanted to review the clause that kept my code out of any future sale unless a judge signed and I had a fever. "Paranoia is kindness to your future self," she wrote. I initialed each line and sent it back. At 10, Nolan's name flashed on my phone like a fire alarm someone had installed for drama. I let it ring twice, then answered. He didn't say hello. "We're exploring acquisitions," he said. "Your tool keeps coming up. Partnerships love it. We could bring it in and give you a strategic role." "What does in mean?" I asked. I opened a window. The wind smelled like tar warming on the roof. "Ownership? License? Tattoo?" He chuckled like a man who wanted to sell me a mirror. "Don't be cute." "Be precise," I said. "Send terms." "There's huge exposure," he said. "I prefer oxygen," I said. "Email me." He didn't. He sent a text later that read, "We'll circle back." I took a pen and wrote in the margin of my day, "If they say circle, draw a square." Then I got back to work. At noon, the clinic director, Marisol, poked her head into my doorway. "We have a walk-in with a bad contract," she said. "Do you have 5? I followed her to the small room where a woman in a red jacket sat clutching a folder like a life vest. She slid it across the table. "They want me to sign this to stay on the platform," she said. "I make hair tutorials. They call me partner. But the split is worse than last year, and they added a morality clause that looks like a net you can throw over anything." I opened Claw on my laptop and fed the PDF. Red bled up like a sunrise you don't trust. I pointed to 3 lines. "This lets them keep your content even if you leave. This lets them bill you for chargebacks that weren't your fault. This lets them cancel you for a community vibe that only lives in their head." She blinked hard. "If I say no, I lose my slot." "If you say yes," I said, "you lose your spine." "What should I do?" she whispered. Marisol leaned in. You ask for caps, definitions, and short terms, she said. We can send a counter. If they say no, we help you move. The woman's shoulders dropped a quarter inch. Everyone says be a real brand, she said. I just want to keep my lights on. Real brands read, I said. We'll help. I wrote 3 edits on a sticky note in big letters. Term 6 months. Chargeback cap 2%. Morality defined and appeal. She left with the note and a plan. Marisol looked at me over the top of her glasses. You're good at this, she said. I had a hard teacher, I said. My afternoon had 1 bruise in it. A message from Patrice. Urgent. Board panel wants you to keynote Real Men Build. Sponsor attached. She included a deck with my face ghosted under a title that made my teeth itch. Page 2 contained talking points. That turned my line into a slogan. Page 3 wanted my customer list for on-site lead capture. I wrote back, decline. Use someone else's poster. She replied, don't be small. I replied, I'm being exact. Then I muted the thread and added her domain to a filter in my inbox named StageBait. Emails from StageBait flowed like water into a folder labeled Compost. At 3, Kara arrived with 2 coffees and a box of pastries she had not posted. For the clinic, she said. She looked around my office and smiled at the tree in the window. You hung, abuela, she added, pointing to my grandmother's photo. She always looked like she knew the numbers. She did, I said. She knew which wolves were actually dogs. Kara's eyes softened. I'm learning, she said. I shoot hands and screens now, not faces. It pays less. I sleep more. Sleep pays in checks you can't cash, I said. It still counts. She set my coffee down and cleared her throat. Patrice wants to put you on a stage, she said. She asked me to ask you. I told her you'd say no. Thank you, I said. She says it's small-minded to say no to a sponsor, Kara added. She confuses loud with large, I said. We stood in comfortable quiet. The printer in the next room hummed. On the sidewalk, a kid dragged a spool of string and tried to make a line between a pole and a mailbox. His friend ducked under it like a gate. The city played small games that fix big ones. At 4, the developer with the squeaky jacket, Callaway, showed up uninvited with a smile he thought was versatile. Nice place, he said, like a threat that had changed clothes. We're closing on the block behind you. Picture an arts district, murals, food trucks, events. You could be part of the vision. Vision is paint, I said. My tenants need pipes. He laughed as if I had told a wholesome joke. We can offer you a seat on the advisory council. Influence. Tastemaker stuff. He handed me a glossy brochure with my building photoshopped white and my clinic replaced by a boutique that sold candles with names like Morning Ambition. The pop-up library had disappeared. In its place, a content lounge. Who's on council? I asked. He rattled names that smelled like panels and foam letters. I didn't hear a bus driver, a roofer, a clinic director, a librarian, or a teen with a landlord on speed dial. No, I said, and take my building out of your mock-ups. He smiled wider. There's a lot of energy moving here. Then don't aim it at me, I said. I slid the brochure back. Also, stop sending letters with final notice to my gate. The tenants think the building's dying. He held up his hands. Just business. So is no, I said. After he left, I walked downstairs and peeled one of his stickers from a light pole. Under it, an older sticker appeared. Ask the room first, from a fight I fought in a different life. It felt like a friend I forgot I had. I smoothed it down with my thumb. Evening settled the way good roofs do. Slow, no drama. I signed 2 minor repairs, booked a gutter clean, and wrote checks that keep small leaks from becoming big ones. I called the roofer to confirm the weather. He told me he'd be there at 7. I like your invoices, he said. They're square. Square beats shiny, I said. At 6, the clinic cleared out. Kara left the pastry box with a sticky note for tomorrow. I switched off the hall lights, leaving one dim strip for the librarian who liked to close the books in a certain order. In my office, I sat at the window and watched the tree make the street look like a human invention and not a mistake. My phone buzzed. A push alert from a site I never read had pulled my name into a headline. From Be a Real Man to Real Estate, How One Guy Got Even with His Wife. The article made me a hero in a fight I didn't want to be famous for. It quoted a version of my line like it was a meme and not a rule. The comments smelled like a bar fight. I resisted the urge to type. I wrote a note for myself instead. Don't let people turn your math into a myth. Then I texted Priya and Torres a screenshot so they wouldn't be blindsided. Both replied with the same word, ignore. I did. At 7, the building rested. I locked the door and walked toward the bus. Halfway down the block, I heard someone call my name. Patrice stood under a streetlight, coat on, lips set. You'll regret saying no, she said. This town eats men like you when they leave the table. I built my own table, I said. And it has chairs you didn't invite. You'll want back in, she said. I'll be busy, I said. She shook her head the way people do when facts refuse to bend. You think money makes you safe? She said. Structure does, I said. Money is just another thing you stack on it. She stared at my building. Inside, the security light glowed at the end of the hall, steady as a promise. Be a real man, she said softly, like a curse she hoped would stick. I am, I said. I became a real millionaire too. Turns out both jobs pay when you keep receipts. Arrogant, she spat. Documented, I corrected. She left. The bus arrived. It sighed and knelt. I rode home with a roofer, a night nurse, and 2 teenagers arguing about whether a $10 app was worth it. It'll save you $100, the girl said. Just don't forget to cancel before the trial ends. She sounded like Priya in sneakers. At my place, I cooked eggs in a skillet that liked my flame and read the last email of the night, a note from Marisol. The red jacket woman sent her counter. They accepted the caps and the appeal. She cried in the hallway and said, I feel like a real adult. She asked me to tell you thank you. I wrote back, tell her she did it. We only underlined. I shut the laptop and leaned back. Revenge had long ago changed names. It was infrastructure now, habits, floors, rails, forms. The proof of my life wasn't the number on a screen or a headline that made strangers cheer. It was a quiet clinic on the first floor, a printer that warmed up, a librarian who knew which kid needed the chair with the rubber feet, a roofer who liked my invoices, a developer's brochure tossed in my compost folder, a woman's contract that learned to speak fair. Before lights out, I sent one text to Kara. Patrice found me under a streetlight. I said no. She replied, good. I told her to stop using your line like a knife. Then, after a beat, you were always a real man. You just needed rooms that didn't ask you to perform. I stared at the words and felt something line up in me that had been leaning for years. I turned off the lamp. The building in my head hummed. Pipes, wires, pages, keys. The tree at the window outside swayed once like a nod. I slept like people do when they know tomorrow already has numbers, names, and a roof that won't leak. Peace came not as a prize, but as a schedule I wrote and kept. The week the roofers came, I learned the sound of work that keeps storms from becoming stories. Tar warmed. Hammers spoke in clean syllables. I walked the 3rd floor with a clipboard and checked the buckets we had placed under 2 old leaks, half hoping they'd stay bored. In the clinic, Marisol set out a sign-up sheet for Wednesday readers and a tray of crackers labeled with a thick marker, nut-free. The print shop framed a poster that said, late fees are boundaries. Quiet ran like a wire through the building. Mid-morning, a letter slid under my office door. No return address. Thick paper. I opened it with the same care I give contracts and snake baskets. Inside, a courtesy notice from Callaway's development group. We intend to apply for a festival permit that will require temporary closures on your block. Participation is assumed. Please reply with power needs, content creator access points, and influencer crash space availability. A map showed my clinic as a wellness tent. The pop-up library had been relabeled Content Stage B. I laughed once, the kind that tastes like metal. I walked downstairs with the letter. The roofer met me on the landing, hat in hand. "Storm tonight," he said. "We'll seal by 4. You'll be fine." In the clinic, I set the notice on Marisol's desk. She read it twice. Her eyebrows did not move. "We don't do assumed," she said. "We do consent." She pulled a Sharpie from a jar and wrote across the map, "No." Then she added, underlined, "Ask the room first." I took a photo for the file and for myself. Good rooms make you brave just by being there. By noon, I had drafted an email. Decline. No access. Building is not a content venue. Clinic cannot be relabeled. Library cannot be staged. Street closures opposed absent resident vote. I CC'd Torres. She added 2 citations and the sentence that shuts doors politely. We will seek injunctive relief for any unauthorized branding or misrepresentation. I hit send and felt my shoulders loosen by one screw. Kara stopped by with sandwiches the color of summer. She held the courtesy notice like it smelled bad. "They tried this with a yoga studio last year," she said. "Called it a pop-up experience and filmed without consent." "Not here," I said. She studied my face the way you read water for currents. "You look happy," she said. "I like roofs that don't lie," I said, "and letters that use the word decline." We ate on the back stair where Rosemary breathed, and a stray cat did an inspection of the trash can with professional focus. Kara brushed crumbs off her lap. "My mother is furious you said no to the keynote," she said. "She said you're wasting momentum." "If momentum depends on me saying yes to bad terms," I said, "it's a cliff." "She asked me to ask you again," she admitted. "You just did," I said. "And I said no." Kara smiled small. "Good," she said. At 2, the librarian rolled in a cart of paperbacks and a laminator older than me. "Storm tonight?" she asked. "Roof is ready," I said. "We'll be dry." "We're starting a Wednesday workshop," she added. "Read a contract like a mystery novel. Do you want to be the guest detective next month?" "I'll bring sticky notes," I said. The first drops tapped the glass at 3:30 like shy fingers. By 4, rain came sideways. The roofers packed, tipped their hats, and drove off before lightning learned the street's name. I walked the floors. No bucket sang, no seams wept. The clinic's rug, once damp under storms, lay flat as a truth told early. I sent the roofer a photo. Dry, paid. He replied with a thumbs up and a line I wanted to frame. Square beats shiny. At 5, Calloway called. "I see your email," he said. "We'll note your concerns. The city wants energy. Don't be the neighbor who ruins fun." "Fun has a permit," I said. "We aren't one." "You'll lose goodwill," he warned. "I collect invoices," I said. "Not likes." He hung up with a small huff. I filed the call log and added a new folder. Festival permit, watch. Often the only difference between revenge and maintenance is the timestamp. Evening pushed the city into honesty. Rain turned the street into lines of light. People ran laughing, jackets over heads, then slowed when the sheet let up. In the clinic doorway, a woman thanked Marisol for helping her say no to a predatory contract. The print shop closed with the smell of warm ink. The pop-up library turned off its lamps and left a note in the window. Closed for storm. Open for clauses tomorrow. I checked rent receipts, sent 2 reminders with kindness in the subject line, and answered an email from Nolan that was 2 paragraphs of circle back and 1 sentence of explore synergy. I replied with a link to my standard license and my calendar for a 30-minute slot next Wednesday. He wrote back, "Let's push." I smiled and erased his time from my head. Before I left, I stood in the hallway and listened. Silence is a luxury. It costs roof tar, honest invoices, and the kind of no that makes room for future yes. On the wall near the stairs, I taped a new sign in my tidy print. Quiet is work. Thank you for doing some. I locked up. The bus sighed and knelt. I rode home with the roofer, who winked once without words, and a teacher carrying a stack of composition books that looked like small safes. In my kitchen, I cooked eggs with peppers and read Priya's spreadsheet one more time. The reserve held. The donor fund fed. Staff got raises. Rent was paid. It didn't look like fireworks. It looked like a stool with 3 legs. The rain slowed to a steady hush. I texted Kara. Storm okay. Roof true. She sent back a photo of her window, dry, and a heart that wasn't a performance. I put my phone face down and wrote one line in my notebook, the kind of line that stays, "Real men don't outrun weather. They winterize." 2 days after the storm, the city clerk posted the festival agenda. Calloway's map had been scrubbed of my building, the clinic, and the library. In the comments, someone wrote, "Finally, a developer who listens." I didn't correct the record. I smiled and printed the agenda for my wall. I sent Marisol a lemon emoji and the words, "Your Sharpie won." While peace held on the block, heat rose in my inbox. An email from Nolan's new VP of Partnerships arrived with confetti gifts and bad nouns. Synergy, vision, moonshot. Attached, a pilot agreement that tried to turn my license into a sieve. The pilot term lasted 18 months. The pilot fee was a discount so deep it felt like an insult in fancy clothes. The data clause read like a vacuum. I opened Claw on my own contract and fed it through. Red poured out like a warning flare. I smiled. It's a special kind of pleasure when your tool bites the hand that tries to pet it wrong. I wrote back, "Decline. Here is my standard license. 6 months. No data capture. PayNet 15. Support capped at 2 hours a week, rates attached." Torres reviewed and added one line. "Breach converts to public case study." I left that line in as a kindness. It makes people behave. At noon, Omar popped in with a box of cables and news. "A boot camp wants to sponsor the library workshop," he said. "In exchange for a slide." He grimaced. "No slides," I said. "They can buy pizza, label it sponsored, and sit quietly." He grinned. "I knew you'd say that." He handed me a napkin with a doodle, my grandmother's ledger as a shield. "Merch concept," he said. "Proceeds to the clinic." "Make the line thick," I said. "People like to trace." After lunch, Kara stopped by in a coat the color of a rainy leaf. She stood in the doorway as if paying respect to the desk. "I got a call from Patrice," she said. "She wanted me to tell you a rumor." "Which one?" I asked. "Calloway says you'll cave on a content lounge if they donate to the clinic," she said. "I won't," I said. "We don't sell air." "I told her you'd say that," she said, and a smile ghosted across her mouth. "Also, the story with your line is trending again. They added a clip of the rooftop, some audio out of context, a title about masculinity and money." "I'm not reading it," I said. "I didn't want you to," she replied. "I just wanted to warn you in case your clients get spooked." "They like my terms more than my story," I said. "That's why I picked them." We walked the hall together. The print shop owner, a woman with ink on her hands and grace in her posture, stepped out to say hi. "We're doing a zine on no," she told us. 15 artists, one word, all different. We want your line on the back." "Use it," I said. "Don't credit me. Credit the clinic." "Credit boring," Kara added. We all laughed. At 3, the Red Jacket creator returned to the clinic with her counteroffer signed by the platform. Marisol whooped, one small, clean sound. "Caps accepted," she said. "Defined terms. Appeal process. 6-month renewal, mutual." The creator looked at me with brave eyes that had learned rest. "I didn't think I could say no," she said. "Now it feels like the word under my foot when the street gets weird." "You said no," I said. We underlined. As she left, she turned back. "Be a real brand," she said, grinning. Read. When the day slowed, I opened the building's reserve account and moved a small slice into a separate pot labeled Tenant Fund. Quiet help. The roofer's father needed a new medication for a month. The librarian's nephew wanted to take a class. The clinic's printer liked to eat paper. None of these were headlines. All of them were wealth. I told Priya I'd fund it personally. She added a note to the books and a reminder to cap it as policy, not whim. Structure keeps charity from becoming theater. At dusk, an email arrived from Nolan's VP. We accept your license. Pilot 6 months. We would like a small carve-out to A/B test data capture. I wrote back, no carve-outs. If you want to measure, do it on your servers with your consent boxes. Don't touch my customers. He replied with a thumbs up I didn't trust and a GIF I didn't watch. Torres added a calendar hold for a kickoff and a note. We will bring a recorder. I laughed. Lawyers save you from imagination. Evening brought the block outside into a glow I craved. The bus sighed and knelt. A kid sold roses one by one, cash wrapped in a napkin, transactions slow and honest. Patrice stood at the end of the street with a woman in a blazer and pointed at my building like a chess piece. I waved. She didn't. The blazer scanned my facade like a problem. They left without knocking. Good doors don't open to pointing. Back upstairs, I checked the flood of comments under the trending story. Strangers said I was a hero. Strangers said I was a villain. Both were wrong. I closed the tab and opened a spreadsheet labeled Future. The top row read, Year 1, keep roof true. Year 2, buy next door. The cell under Year 2 held a number that scared the part of me that once begged for validation. I let the fear sit. Then I fed it dates. Before lights out, I wrote one sentence for myself in black pen. Slow. No is a bank account with an interest rate called sleep. I slid the notebook under Abuela's photo. She looked like she approved. The workshop at the library pulled more chairs than expected. Teens in hoodies, freelancers with laptops, a school counselor, a bus driver off shift, a baker from the next block still dusted with flour. The poster on the wall read, Read a contract like a mystery. I opened with a line that made a few pens pause. Every bad clause leaves a fingerprint. We're here to dust. We started with a fake deal I wrote the night before that looked friendly and hit a trap. We passed out highlighters, yellow for fees, green for rights, pink for exits. Kara filmed hands only, her camera low, the screen jitter showing how power looks when it moves between fingers. The bus driver circled force majeure in green and said, That word saved me once. The teen underlined arbitration and said, Why do they get to pick the judge? We talked about mutuality, caps, and time. We honored the librarian's hard rule. End on time. Midway, the back door opened and Nolan walked in with a smile that wanted to be a brand. He held up a coffee and sat. He thought being seen would help. I thought being quiet would. We finished the exercise. Then a middle-aged man in a suit raised his hand with a tremor in it. My wife signed a roofing contract with a supplemental fee clause, he said. Now they want double. They said, the market. What do we do? Ask for photos, I said. Ask for line item changes. Ask for dates. Ask for the name of the inspector. Ask for the city code. Ask for their profit cap. Ask for your right to walk. He wrote in the margins like a student with a good teacher. The room breathed easier because someone had turned panic into nouns. After, the librarian gave the boot camp their sponsored by sign and a smile that did not apologize for refusing slides. Outside, Nolan clapped me on the shoulder. See? You're a star, he said. Let's film these and make a series. Company brand up front, you as host. We'll call it Claws Out. He opened his hands like a man offering a fish he didn't catch. No, I said. You can't keep saying no, he said, chuckling. You'll leave money on the table. I brought my own table, I said. He sniffed. We'll just build our own version, he said. No hard feelings. You can, I said. You won't build my spine into it. He got quiet for a second, the way people do when they hear themselves hit glass. You used to need us, he said. I needed the version of me that worked for you, I said. He doesn't live here anymore. He left without a handshake. The teen who had circled arbitration watched him go. Is that your villain? He asked. No, I said. He's just a mirror I grew past. Back at the building, the print shop had finished the No zine. 15 pages, 15 fonts, 15 angles. One page held my line in type big enough for tired eyes. Real men don't perform. They build. Under it, a drawing of Abuela's ledger as a door. I paid for 50 copies and left them in the clinic with a jar that said, pay what you can. In the afternoon, Calloway sent an updated festival plan, now community-led. He had added a panel titled Real Men Build without my name and with 3 sponsor logos. The description, from hustle to holding, stories from the front lines of new masculinity. I wrote one sentence back. Take my line out of your copy or I will invoice you for a license you can't afford. He deleted the panel. He added a DJ. Progress has odd rhythm. Midweek, the clinic saw a client who worked as an interpreter for a delivery company. Her contract let them cut her shifts if she lowered the vibe. We underlined vibe and wrote define. She smiled, small and dangerous. I can say that? She asked. To them? You can ask it, I said. Good companies like good questions. What about bad ones? She asked. We leave, I said, or we build our own. I hired a second developer, Mina, who wrote tight code and liked deadlines more than donuts. We sat at the long table by the window and sketched a new module for Claw. Nest, a feature that mapped a contract's defined terms so people could see when a clause tried to borrow a definition it didn't earn. People get lost in nested references, she said. We'll unspool it. We shipped Nest on a Friday. On Saturday, a writer with 30,000 subscribers sent a screenshot of Nest turning a paragraph into a clean map. God tier, he wrote. The comment said, finally, and crying far. I took a picture of the sunshine on the floor because that felt like the actual proof. That night, Kara and I walked past the rooftop where it started. The neon Hustle Harder had broken a letter. It now said, Hustle Hard. I laughed. Kara did too. Fitting, she said. We stopped at a bench and watched the city invent small kindnesses. Someone moved a scooter so a stroller could pass. A teen picked up a fallen sign and set it straight. A dog sat when the light changed. Kara laced her fingers and said, not looking at me, the day you walked away, I hated you. Then I hated me. Then I hated the mic. Then I learned to love the calendar. I loved you, I said. I know, she said. Thank you for not turning me into your villain. You didn't let me, I said. You did the work. She smiled. Now you're going to be unbearable. I file, I said. I don't gloat. We parted at the corner. A bus sighed and knelt. The driver waved. I waved back. My building waited with the light on in the hall, the kind that tells you someone cares. That feeling, not the number in an account, is what made me a millionaire. It was the part nothing could take. The city tried one more trick before the festival. A business improvement district proposal that would tax beneficiaries like me for enhanced services. We didn't ask for brand consultants, pop-up PR, street banners with slogans written by people who say activation without blushing. I read the proposal and saw who it fed. The same groups who call theft a campaign. I printed the document and took a pen to it with 3 neighbors, the baker, the barber, the woman who runs the thrift store that smells like luck. We sat at the clinic table and marked sections like we were grading a paper. Define improvement. Where do funds go? Who votes? How to exit? We wrote a counter memo that didn't shout. It asked for sidewalks fixed, trees planted, lights maintained, benches repaired, bathrooms unlocked, and meetings held at hours that let shift workers come. It asked for no face without consent in district advertising. It asked for the word activation to be banned. We attached a petition signed by 24 names that pay rent on time. I dropped our packet at the clerk's office and walked home with a sense I had learned to trust, the feeling of a brick placed where it won't move. The next day, the city posted revisions. Banners were out. Bathrooms were in. The word activation had been replaced with maintenance. I framed that page and set it in the hallway because sometimes you should hang your wins where scuffed shoes can see them. Nolan's pilot kicked off with an hour-long meeting in which 3 product evangelists tried to put my license into a sentence their investors could read out loud. Torres sat next to me with her recorder visible and a stack of paper that smelled like toner and fence posts. Mina ran a demo. Claw found 6 red flags in their standard creator contract. The evangelists smiled like men asked to choose between their mother and their dog. "We're flexible," the lead one said. "Can we turn off the red for launch?" "No," Mina said, kind and flat. "What if we change the thresholds?" He tried. "Then you change the contract," she said. They ended the call early. We received payment the same day. They didn't ask to change the thresholds again. Patrice kept sending invitations to things I don't attend. Men and Money Brunch, New Masculinity Salon, Real Man Awards. I added a filter that routed her emails to compost. I felt petty for 1 second, then felt clean for the rest of the day. The festival weekend arrived with less noise than expected. Calloway's crew avoided our block. The clinic stayed open and quiet. The print shop hosted a lettering lab for kids. The library did a clause scavenger hunt, where teens found the word assignment in old form contracts and wrote their own definitions. In the distance, a stage bellowed. On our street, someone tuned a violin near an open window, and a smell of bread climbed the stairwell like a hymn. Kara walked by carrying a tripod and a small bag. "I'm filming shadows," she said. "They don't need consent." "Careful," I said. "Shadows can perform." She laughed. "Then I'll shoot floors." At sunset, a rumor reached me like a fly. Calloway had told a reporter I was hostile to Progress. I shrugged. Progress had learned my name and stopped trying to force me to dance. The reporter called. I didn't pick up. He texted, "Quote?" I wrote back. "We asked for benches, bathrooms, and trees. We got them. That's Progress." He printed that. The comments fought over whether benches were woke. The benches didn't care. People sat. Late, while closing the library room, the librarian handed me a book she had saved. Your Money or Your Life. Dog-eared. Notes in the margins in a neat hand. "Someone donated it," she said. "Thought of you." I read a penciled line on the inside cover. "Be a real adult. Pick the boring path and walk." I didn't cry. But I put my hand on the cover the way you touch a railing. On Sunday, the festival ended. The street looked the same, -2 flyers and +1 chalk drawing of a cat on a skateboard labeled legal. I took a picture. I sent it to Priya, who wrote back, "That cat has a prenup." I laughed alone in the hall and left the drawing until the rain took it. The day after the festival, a letter came from the city attorney's office. I braced for drama. It was a thank you. "Your counter memo improved the BID plan. Please consider joining the advisory committee for maintenance priorities. Not a stage, a schedule." I said yes. At the meeting, 3 people in suits brought slides. The barber brought a list. The baker brought a pan of rolls with labels. Contains nuts, nut-free. The woman from the thrift store brought a map with stickers for each broken light. I brought a Sharpie, a pen that didn't skip, and the sentence, "End on time, or I vote no." We did. The city attorney smiled like a person who likes nouns. We walked out with a list that fit on 1 page and a budget that didn't wear makeup. Nolan's VP tried again to soften my license. "What about a success clause?" he wrote, "whereby we get a discount after we integrate." "No," I replied. "Your success is not my coupon." He wrote back a single period, then paid the next invoice. I spent the afternoon with Mina mapping Nest V2. We wanted it to teach people to follow the breadcrumb trail of definitions without getting lost. We added hover states that pulled the right clause into a side pane and a history that logged who changed what, when. Bad actors hide traps in edits, Mina said. We'll show the fingerprints. Kara came by with a camera crew of one, herself. I'm doing a piece on hands that build small rooms, she said. No faces. She filmed my hand turning the lock, Marisol's hand stamping received, Mina's hand hovering over code, the librarian's hand sliding a book back, the roofer's hand patting dry tar, the baker's hand cutting rolls, the barber's hand tapping his brush on the chair. She edited on the floor of the print shop with her back against a cabinet. The piece went up that night with the title, Rooms. It got fewer views than her brand posts once did. It got better comments. I can breathe. This looks like love. Where can we learn? She added the clinic's hours and the workshop dates. The next clinic day, 2 new clients came with printouts. Patrice invited me to lunch. I said yes because sometimes grace looks like a chair you hate. She picked a place where water glasses clink like wind chimes and menus whisper lies. She wore a scarf that could have paid my property taxes. You're difficult, she began. It's costing you. I'm rich, I said. In money? She scoffed. Please. In sleep, I said. In rooms. In the number of people who can use this building without asking for permission to be safe. She sat back. You talk like a monk. I act like a landlord, I said. A good one. She leaned in. Be a real man and make this bigger. A fund, a brand, a TED Talk. You're sitting on a mountain shouting at ants. I'm sitting on a roof keeping rain out, I said. The rest is noise. She set her fork down. I thought you were soft, she said, honest for once. I was, I said. Now I'm steady. She nodded once, sharp, a truce of sorts. We ate rolls that tried to be worth their price and failed. When the bill came, I paid it because I could and because sometimes the best revenge is leaving the table paid and on time. Back at the building, the barber called me over to see a photo on his wall. His grandfather with a broom in front of a shop. 1956, scrawled in pencil. He said the same thing you say, the barber told me. Clean is a policy. We both laughed. I stole it, I said. Evening brought me a binder from Torres, Building 2, Due Diligence. Next door's owner wanted to sell before the tax hike. The price was fair. The roof was ready to lie. The basement needed a prayer and a pump. I ran the numbers. The donor fund could help the clinic expand if we took the ground floor. The print shop needed a bigger press. The library could use a room with a door. The flower shop down the block dreamed of a cold case that didn't wheeze. I wrote 3 columns. Must, want, later. I put roof under must, bathrooms under must, paint under later. Abuela would approve. Before I turned out the lights, I stood at the window and watched a teen teach his little brother how to look both ways. Left, right, left, he said. The kid bobbed his head too big, too fast, then found the rhythm. They crossed. They didn't film it. No one clapped. It was small and everything. I texted Kara, thinking about Building 2. She sent back, I made a list if you want it. Things I wished our old building had. I replied, send. Her list arrived in a minute. Hooks by the door, a bench that doesn't wobble, a sink that drains, a sign that says, ask first next to the elevator buttons. The last line read, a landlord who answers. I looked around my room at the tar smell fading, the coffee mug with the chip, the ledger on the wall. I wrote back, we have that part. I signed the second building in a room that smelled like dust and old promises. The seller, a quiet man with paint on his knuckles, slid the keys across the table like he was giving me a favor he couldn't carry anymore. Roof lies, he said. Basement floods. Bones are honest. I shook his hand and nodded at the 3 truths that matter in a building. Priya's wire confirmation pinged my phone. Torres circled today's date in the closing packet with a pen that wrote like a ruler. Outside, the block watched without applause. It didn't owe me a cheer. I walked the new property alone first. The hall had the echo of rooms that forgot their names. A single chair sat in a corner like a tired bouncer. Pipes rattled without panic. I tapped the plaster and listened for hollow lies. The basement smelled like a pond, remembering to be a house. I took photos with my phone, seams, joints, junctions, and sent a batch to Mina with the note. We'll need sensors in here, quiet ones. By noon, I had a plan the size of a page and the weight of a policy. Roof sat at the top underlined, drain under it, heat third. I added a second column, people, because rooms mean nothing without them. The clinic could expand into ground floor north. The print shop wanted a space for classes that didn't fight a press. The library could use a door that locked and a table that forgave pencils. I penciled in rents that made my math breathe and my conscience stay in the room. Calloway showed up by 2 like weather. His shoes clicked on the cracked tile with the confidence of a man who expects floors to hold his weight and arguments. Congrats, he said. You're building a block. We can help. Position it. I'm not repositioning people, I said. Branding helps tenants, he said. We can increase foot traffic, activate corridors, monetize. Stop, I said. Say shovel and mop and I'll listen. He laughed like it was charming to be scolded. We want to donate an art wall, he said. Community vibe, sponsored content. We'll own the footage. You'll own nothing, I said. If my wall earns, it pays the roof. His smile rippled. You're hostile. I'm insured, I said. He left a glossy one-pager. I slid it into a file named compost. Later, when I needed scrap paper for measurements, I wrote bathroom stalls, 3 on the back, and smiled. Kara came by with a thermos of black coffee and a socket set in a dented tin. My father's, she said, like an apology that didn't ask to be forgiven. We climbed to the second floor and found a small room that would make a decent studio for the clinic's counseling days. She stood in the doorway and closed her eyes. It's soft, she said. She meant the light. Soft is expensive, I said. We'll guard it. Back at the first building, Marisol lined up the clinic's files like fence posts. Can we afford a second site 2 days a week? She asked. Yes, I said. We have a fund. Whose? She pressed. Mine, I admitted. Documented. She tilted her head. Then write a policy. I won't accept charity without rules. Done, I said, relieved she knew the right lines to draw. We drafted quiet help on 1 page, purpose, sources, caps, approvals, reporting. We kept the sentences short. We gave the clinic power to say no to money that tried to boss. When we finished, Marisol stamped the corner adopted with a date. I breathed like a man who made a road safe for a bus he'd never ride. I hired a plumber who looked at the basement and didn't promise miracles. We'll get you dry, she said, but get a sump pump or pray. We installed the pump. We prayed anyway because some habits don't cost much. The roofer walked the second roof and scratched his jaw. She won't lie if we pay her attention, he said. He used she-like affection. He tarred the seams, set new flashing, and left a bill so square I wanted to frame it beside Abuela. At night, I met Omar on the sidewalk and watched our block edit itself, litter to bin, sign to straight, chalk line renewed by a teen's careful hand. You could go bigger, he said. Raise a fund. Roll these rules across 10 streets. I could, I said. But I'd miss a leak. He nodded. He understands that fame sometimes costs roofs. Nolan sent a friendly calendar invite. Quick chat, future of Claw. He wanted to turn the pilot into a strategic alliance. Torres joined the call. Nolan tried to charm her with legalese. She replied with paragraphs that snapped like measuring tapes. Mina showed Nest V2 and a new feature that exposed edits in tracked changes, even if someone tried to hide them in a PDF. The partnerships team smiled and didn't blink. We'll need to route around that, one muttered, forgetting he was unmuted. I raised an eyebrow. Or you change the clause, Mina said. Silence. An invoice paid itself in my inbox. By the end of the week, I had keys for 4 doors, a schedule for 2 roofs, and a list of tenants that made the building feel like a chorus. You could hear each voice if you listened, but together they made a room understand itself. I wrote one line in my book, Pressing Hard. Wealth is just your rules surviving other people's emergencies. The city sent a notice. Noise variance application. Weekend night market. It would run until 1 a.m. 3 blocks away. Good for vendors, bad for sleep. I walked to the meeting with my no sharpened to a yes. Yes to market, no to amplified sound after 11, yes to extra trash pickups, no to generators that scream like bad deals. The chair scanned the room for drama. He saw adults with lists. We spoke in turns. We ended on time. The variance passed with caps. The comments under the city's post argued about whether quiet was elitist. I let the comments be poor. My block could be rich. On Thursday, Kara's Peace Rooms hit 1,000 shares. Not viral, real. A teacher in another neighborhood wrote, "We used your video to start a class about consent and contracts. The kids asked better questions than my board." Kara forwarded me the message without a caption. I sent back a lemon for the librarian. She sent a coffee cup for the clinic. We spoke in objects now. It kept us from reopening old cuts. Patrice ambushed me on my stoop again, this time with a man whose smile promised returns and whose eyes promised paperwork I'd hate. "This is Felix," she said. "He runs a fund for good men with good code." "I'm a boring man with boring code," I said. "It prints receipts." "Exactly," Felix said. "Let us scale your boring." "Define scale," I said. "Leverage brand partnerships for distribution," he said. "No," I said. "You haven't heard the offer," he said. "I've heard the nouns," I said. He took a breath and tried a different street. "We'd like your customer list for a pilot," he said. 30 days. Data scrubbed. Sponsored by... "No," I said. "If you need my list, you don't deserve it." Patrice's mouth hardened. "You keep choosing small." "I keep choosing built," I said. They left an envelope with a typed number that could have paid for 3 roofs and a headline. I took the check out, held it under the window light, and noticed the date. Yesterday. That meant they'd printed this before we spoke. They weren't offering. They were expecting. I wrote void across it and slid it into the compost file. Torres emailed, "Proud of your spine." Priya wrote, "Proud of your shredder." Midday, the clinic saw a line cook with a new non-compete. "They say I can't cook in this town for a year if I leave," he said, eyes tired. Claw lit the claws red. "Not enforceable here" flashed at the top. We wrote him a script to say out loud to his boss. "I appreciate the training. This clause is not enforceable in our state. I will give 2 weeks." He practiced the line until his mouth believed it. He hugged the air near my shoulder like a man who doesn't hug strangers but wants to. I moved through both buildings with a pencil behind my ear, writing small numbers near big problems. Door sweep, $30, stall lock, $18, LED bulbs, 62s, pressure regulator, 110s. Money replaced panic one line at a time. In the second building's basement, the pump purred like a cat that knew it had one job. The floor stayed dry. I added a line to my list. Thank the plumber. Pay on time. Omar brought a box of "No is a Policy" zines and a stack of shirts with Abuela's ledger screen-printed over the chest. We sold them for cost and funneled tips to the Quiet Help Fund. The print shop asked if they could host a class for teenagers on how to file an LLC. "Yes," I said, "but only if we also teach how to close one. Starting is not the only brave thing." A letter arrived from a law firm that tried to sound friendly. "We represent Callaway Group. Your client's repeated public opposition to our community efforts constitutes interference. We demand you cease negative commentary." Torres drafted a reply in 6 sentences that said no in 3 different dialects of law. Marisol added a 1-page addendum. Photos of our block's bathrooms, benches, lights, before and after. The caption, "Maintenance is not negative. We printed copies and set them on the clinic desk like recipes. In the evening, I found Nolan lingering in front of the print shop, reading the zines. "I like the ledger," he said. "Buy one," I said. He did. He tucked it under his arm like a map he wasn't ready to unfold. "We can't match your license terms for enterprise," he admitted. "Then don't," I said. "Keep your promises elsewhere." He sighed. "You could have been VP by now." "I am CEO," I said without triumph, "of a company that pays vendors on time and teaches kids how to file an LLC. He stared at me like I had used a language he didn't offer in school. "Take care," he said, and meant it. "You too," I said, and meant it back. Before bed, I sat at my window and watched two teenagers chalk arrows for a scavenger hunt, one pointing to the clinic, one to the library, one to a bench with a view of a tree. They wrote "rest here" on the sidewalk and drew a square around the words so wheels would miss them. I didn't cry, but I felt something in me that used to need rooms like this stand up and stretch like a back waking in a chair that fits. The first real challenge inside the second building wasn't pipes. It was a tenant application from a podcaster with money and noise. He wanted the corner suite for a story lab with creative residency energy. His references were fancy. His clause requests were feral. He wanted 24/7 access, a flexible guest policy, and the right to capture ambient building audio. For texture, he offered above market. He wanted the library's wall occasionally for a live show. I printed his application, wrote no across 3 paragraphs, and invited him to tour anyway. He wore black like a uniform and sneakers that squeaked apologies. We walked the hall. He loved the light and told me I had curated a vibe. I told him I had maintained a block. He didn't laugh. At the suite, he spread his hands like a man measuring an audience. "Humming energy," he said. "We'll grow community." "You'll grow yourself," I said, "which is fine. Not here." He blinked. "We'll pay." "Money is a guest," I said. "Respect is a tenant." He frowned as if a riddle had tricked him. "Who says no to momentum?" he asked. "People who know the cost," I said. "Good luck finding a room that wants to be a stage." He left his card. It was thicker than my door. I pinned it under the ledger photo and wrote no on it because habits can be art. Instead, I leased the corner to a co-op of interpreters who needed a quiet space with fixed hours and sturdy chairs. The rent was less. The value was more. They brought a kettle, a plant, and a schedule that did not lie. On day 1, they hung a sign that said, "Ask before recording." I sat on the hallway bench and breathed like a person whose lungs remembered youth. Kara's studio produced a series of short films called "Fix What You Keep." Hands turning screws. People labeling bins. A teen teaching his aunt how to update a phone plan. A barber sewing a tear in a vinyl chair corner. A baker weighing dough without a scale by feel learned in 1,000 mornings. The comments said I can do this. The sponsors stayed away because usefulness doesn't need a logo. Good. Patrice called less. When she did, it wasn't to sell me a stage, it was to ask if I knew a roofer. "Mine lied," she said. I gave her my roofer's number without a speech. She later texted paid on time. Roof, true. That's the closest we'll get to peace, and it is enough. Callaway tried to buy the small lot behind my second building for parking activation, food trucks and brand booths. The city clerk posted his intent. We posted letters. The barber's grandfather's photo sat on the table like an elder at a meeting. We asked for trees, open hours, no generators after 9, and a maintenance fund held in escrow, not promises. Callaway called me obstruction with a face. I called him opacity with a budget. The clerk rolled her eyes at both of us and wrote a compromise that made the lot a pocket park on weekdays and a market on Saturdays, with rules posted in big text and benches that didn't wobble. In the clinic, the red jacket creator brought cookies with labels and a story without performance. She had negotiated a second contract elsewhere, used Claw on her own, and taught 2 friends to do the same. She put $50 in the quiet help jar and said, "This saved me a month of rent." I wanted to hang her sentence on the wall. I settled for writing it, date and all, in my notebook. Mina hired an intern, Joe, a student with a head for patterns and a notebook full of boxes. Joe mapped a predatory franchise agreement and added a feature to Nest that let users trace obligations visually. Lines from you to they to notwithstanding looked like a net. Joe showed where to cut. We pushed the update on a Wednesday. On Thursday, a union organizer emailed us a thank you in all caps. I didn't mind. You made my day shorter. Nolan's team tried to sneak a clause into a change order. Vendor will provide assistance with PR where needed. Mina circled it in red and wrote nope in the margin of the PDF. We sent it back without a lecture. They approved the change order with the clause removed, and a smiley face I decided to accept as a small surrender. At home, my floor stayed quiet, my books stayed alphabetized by usefulness, and my sleep stayed the kind you can build on. I donated to the library's cart fund and asked for no plaque. They put my name on a post-it inside a drawer. The smell of paper felt like a party I'd earned. One night on the sidewalk, a kid stopped me and held up a school flyer. "Mr. Aiden," he said, not shy. "They want to charge us to use the gym after school. They said new policy." "What do we ask?" I said. He grinned. "Date, vote, minutes." "Go be boring," I said. 2 weeks later, he brought me a copy of the minutes with a highlighted line. Fee rescinded. He clapped twice. I clapped twice. We didn't film it. We ate churros from the bakery and talked about a better three-pointer. I took a call from a journalist who promised to be fair. She wanted to write about masculinity and money, and how my line had shifted the discourse. I said no at first. Then she said the story would be about paperwork, not pain, and she named sources who liked benches more than buzz. I said yes on 2 conditions: no rooftop clip, no hero arc. She agreed. We met in the clinic's conference room on a Tuesday. She wore flats, took notes with a pencil, and let silences do their work. She asked about the night on the roof. I gave her 2 sentences and a date. She asked about the million. I gave her an index of transfers and a policy for salaries. She asked about revenge. I corrected her. Maintenance. Revenge turned into maintenance the day we wrote the first rule on a wall. She nodded and moved on. She spoke with Marisol, Mina, Omar, the librarian, the roofer, the barber, the baker, the interpreter co-op, the red jacket creator, and the teen who fought the gym fee. She asked Kara for comment. Kara gave her 3 sentences that belonged to now, not then. He built rooms. I learned to build in them. We both sleep. When the story ran, it didn't trend. It didn't need to. It sat on a page with a photo of hands passing a contract over a table and a caption that said, "Not a guru, a landlord with rules." The pull quote was the line I wanted kids to underline. Wealth isn't noise. It's what your rules do when nobody is watching. People cut it out and taped it to corkboards. A teacher read it at a staff meeting. A bus driver copied it onto a 3x5 card and slid it under a visor. Patrice texted a screenshot with fair and nothing else. That was her piece. That afternoon, Calloway sent a measured email. "We are moving ahead with the pocket park under the agreed terms. We want to include your clinic hours on the kiosk." I replied, "Yes," in plain font. "No sponsor logos on clinic details." He wrote back noted. The kiosk went up a month later. It listed bathrooms, benches, clinic hours, library workshops, and rules in big text. The bottom line read, "Ask before filming." If you squinted, you could see the fights we didn't have to have because the sign fought for us. At dusk, the interpreter co-op invited me to a potluck in their suite. People sat on chairs that didn't wobble and ate food that didn't show off. A man told a story about a hospital that tried to pay him in credit. A woman told a story about a student who hugged her after she explained a contract to a parent. We did not talk about hustle. We did not talk about killing anything. We talked about silent victories. A clause removed, a fee corrected, a shift protected, a night slept. Nolan emailed to say the pilot was a success. They wanted to extend at my rates. He asked for a quote for his internal newsletter. I wrote, "Ethics ships faster." He used it. He did not credit me. I did not care. The code in their contracts now had fewer teeth. That counted more than a footnote. Kara stopped by the pocket park carrying a box of chalk. She drew a square around the bench and wrote "Rest" here again because rain had taken the first one. 2 kids watched. "Draw rules," she told them. "Good ones." They wrote "no pushing" and "no filming and share." One drew a cat on a skateboard again. The cat wore a helmet this time. Progress. I filled out a form for a small grant to subsidize clinic hours on Sundays. The grant asked for a theory of change in 250 words. I wrote, "We give people rooms where saying no is normal. We give them tools to turn panic into nouns. We fix roofs, we post signs, we teach receipts. The change is not a speech, it's a schedule. The grant funded, the clinic opened on Sundays with a skeleton crew and a big pot of tea. People came with forms and left with sentences they could say to bosses, brands, and landlords who didn't deserve them. Marisol taped a new sign in the hall. We don't fix you. We fix the paperwork around you. On my way home one night, I passed the rooftop where it began. The neon was off. The sign read only H and E. A party murmured behind glass. For a second, I saw my past self on the edge, breath shallow, jaw set, heart learning a slow anger. I put my hand on the railing outside and felt metal give me back my heat. The city didn't need my apology for surviving. It needed my invoices. It had them. When I got to my door, a box leaned against it. No return address, neat tape. Inside, a small wooden frame and a photo, hands resting on a ledger, mine and Kara's, cropped at the wrists, no rings in sight, just skin and paper. On the back, in her blocky print, "Be a real man." Build. I set it on my desk under Abuela's photo. It didn't ache. It fit. I ended the night writing one more sentence in the book I keep for lines that hold. Peace isn't empty. It's full of names, dates, roofs, benches, chairs, and a city that learned to ask first. The pocket park opened on a Saturday without speeches. The kiosk listed bathrooms, benches, clinic hours, and rules in plain type. Kids chalked hopscotch, then added a square labeled Ask. A sax player, uninvited but gentle, tested the air with low notes and stopped when a baby slept on a blanket. I set a box of zines on the table. No is a policy. They vanished one by one into tote bags and back pockets. Calloway arrived halfway through, jacket squeaking prosperity. He stood by the kiosk like a man trying to claim a sunset. "Looks good," he said as if praise were a receipt. "It works," I said. He gestured toward a blank wall facing the lot. "We could sponsor a mural here. Real men build. You pick the artist, we pick the logo." "No slogans on my brick," I said. "Art or shade, pick one." He clicked his tongue. "You're allergic to help." "I'm allergic to rent-seeking dressed as help," I said. "If you want to help, fund the bathrooms for 5 years. No plaque." He laughed, but wrote something in his notes. Maybe he'd think on it. Maybe not. Either way, the bench didn't care. By noon, the clinic had seen 3 walk-ins who came because the kiosk spoke their language. Marisol stamped received with a rhythm that felt like the block's heartbeat. A woman asked if she could post a selfie in front of the rules. Marisol pointed to ask before filming. The woman read, nodded, and put her phone away. That nod was a small prize I collected and filed inside me. In the afternoon, a problem I didn't plan for arrived with a beep. A power outage darkened the second building. The pump in the basement went silent. I grabbed a flashlight and jogged. In the lobby, the emergency light glowed dull. The air already felt heavier. I called the utility and started a clock in my head, 30 minutes before we had water where floor should be. Mina met me with a portable battery and a grin that only engineers wear in emergencies. "Manual override," she said, and pointed her chin toward the basement. We clipped the pump to the battery, ran the line high, and listened. The motor spun. Water gurgled toward the street like a relieved animal. We stood in the blue light and laughed once, short. On the third floor, the interpreter co-op held a candlelit meeting and decided to reschedule. They left notes on their clients' voicemails in 3 languages, all saying the same thing. "We will call you back when the building breathes again." I left a tray of pastries by their door with a sticky note, "On me." They wrote received under it in 4 scripts. It felt like a small treaty signed by hands. Power returned at dusk with a hum and a click. The pump purred full, then rested. I texted the plumber a thank you for her line placement, above the old flood mark, dry. She replied with a wrench emoji and square beats shiny. I started keeping a list of sentences that saved me. That one was top 5. Sunday morning, the paper ran a small story. Pocket Park opens with rules. People can read. No selfie, no brand, no panel. Just benches and restrooms, and a photo of a kid coloring in the helmet on a chalk cat. The caption read, "When rules are clear, people behave." I clipped it and pinned it by Abuela. At work, my work now, Mina and I shipped a tiny update to Nest that made the hover tool work on phones. A teenager messaged, "Now I can explain contracts to my dad on the bus." I leaned back and let that sit. A bus is a classroom if you bring the right book. Patrice sent a surprising text. "Roof, true. Paid. Thank you." I typed back, "Anytime," and meant it. Bridges built with invoices sometimes hold better than those built with speeches. Nolan emailed a link to a launch video. In the first minute, his host said, "We protect creators," then cut to a contract with no red. The comments asked about data. A minute later, they posted a corrected clip with consent boxes in big font. Mina watched it and nodded. "They're learning," she said. That night, I walked through both buildings and touched the things I loved: locks that turned, signs that told the truth, chairs that didn't punish, a pump that waited, a ledger on the wall that reminded me money is just a way to spell care. On the sidewalk, 2 teens practiced layups on a bent rim. One shouted, "You have to follow through." I smiled into the dark. Follow-through is wealth. A week later, a letter with a gold seal landed in my mailbox, a summons to mediation. Calloway's group alleged I had tortiously interfered with their festival plans and bid goals. They wanted an apology in principle and collaboration terms. The phrases sounded clean the way a fence sounds clean when it hides a mess. Torres met me in the clinic conference room with a legal pad and a patience that could bend metal without breaking it. "We'll go," she said. "We won't perform. We'll bring receipts." At mediation, a neutral sat between us like a referee at a game that could end in a handshake or a new rule. Calloway's lawyer opened with a slide deck that used photos of my building without permission and words like obstruction and narrative capture. Torres slid the deck back across the table with a finger. "Take those photos out of your presentation and your mouth," she said. "He didn't consent." The mediator cleared his throat. "Let's try for common ground," he said. "I like benches and bathrooms," I said. "They like banners and brand activations. If they fund the first 2, I'll stop writing memos about the last 2. Calloway's lawyer smiled like a wolf who attends yoga. "Our client is committed to community." "Define community," Torres said. Silence held like a string pulled too tight. Then the lawyer tried a new angle. "Our client will fund bathrooms for 5 years," he said, glancing sideways. "If Mr. Lane," he meant me, "agrees to refrain from public criticism of our events." "No," I said. "Tie the bathroom fund to a city account. Write maintenance rules at font size 32. Leave my mouth alone." "Your influence could be helpful," the mediator offered. "My influence keeps water in pipes," I said. "The city can handle the rest." In the end, they agreed to fund the bathrooms, plant trees, and pay for an extra trash pickup after events. We agreed to end on time. I did not agree to a whitewashed quote. After, outside in the lobby, Calloway stared at my shoes and said, "You're the most annoying person I can't buy." "You're the most persistent person I won't sell to," I said. Back on the block, a teen named Lila stopped me. "I sent the gym minutes to my uncle in another town," she said. "They used them to roll back fees for a whole district." She held up a cookie like a trophy and said, "We got cinnamon rolls instead of speeches." I laughed. "That's a smart award," I said. She fist-bumped me with crumbs. In the afternoon, the interpreter co-op brought me a new lease they'd found online. It tried to require brand alignment activities twice a quarter. We circled the clause, laughed, and wrote no brand alignment. Yes, building maintenance alignment. The co-op took a photo with their kettle in the corner and sent it to 3 colleagues. A movement can start with a mug. Mina demoed Nest at the library's workshop. A bus driver in uniform lifted his phone with both hands like a ceremony and tapped through a predatory form. "You mean I can see what notwithstanding points to?" he asked. "Yes," Mina said. "And who wrote it?" He wiped his eyes once, quickly. "I thought tired was my fault," he said. "No," Mina said. "It was their clauses." That night, Nolan texted like a man who discovered humility in a drawer and tried it on. "We added your no hidden edits rule company-wide," he wrote. "It's a pain. It's good." I sent a thumbs up. He replied, "Do you want credit?" I wrote back, "No. You kept the rule. That's the credit." I ended the day on the Pocket Park bench, watching a kid trace the word share on the chalk list and add a period. Periods matter. They tell rooms when to rest. The first real conflict inside my walls came from 2 good people with different clocks. The print shop wanted to run a late-night edition class for teens who work after school. The interpreter co-op needed quiet evenings for on-call work. Both were right. Both felt big to themselves. We held a meeting at the long table. I set a timer for 40 minutes and a whiteboard for the rules. State needs in 1 sentence. Propose 2 solutions each. No speeches. The print shop spoke first. "We teach teens at night. It keeps them safe and gives them skills." The co-op. "We need quiet to hear legal words correctly at night." We wrote both sentences down. We listed solutions: soundproofing, schedule swap, rotating nights, different rooms, thick rugs. Mina pulled up a decibel meter and a calendar. We mapped noise. We mapped need. We priced panels. We moved rugs. We traded 2 nights. We set quiet hours firm at 9 with a 15-minute buffer for cleanup. We ended on time. The teens still learned. The co-op still heard. No one won. We built a room that could hold both. After, one of the teens left a note on the whiteboard in block letters. "Thank you for the clock." I took a photo and filed it under reminders. A new letter arrived from the fund Felix ran. "We can anchor a seed round at a high valuation. You can hire 10 and grow quickly. Think big." I wrote back, "I think long." He sent a smile that didn't reach his eyes. I added his domain to compost and felt my day get quieter. Kara's series, Fix What You Keep, featured the barber sewing the chair again. A viewer commented, "My dad did this. I thought it was poor. Now I understand it was love." Kara replied with a single word, "Yes." She told me later that it took her a full minute to decide not to add a hashtag. Growth can be counted in what you don't post. Patrice phoned with a puff of apology. "I said no to a panel," she announced, tone bright. "They wanted real men build without rules. I told them benches first." I smiled into the line. "Welcome to the bench party," I said. She laughed despite herself. "Your roof guy is a magician," she admitted. "Square beats shiny." "Tell him that," I said. "And pay him on time." She did. Torres sent me a thick packet. 4 cease and desist letters we could send if anyone used my line commercially without license. "I know you won't use them," she said. "But sometimes a letter in a drawer makes you sleep better." She was right. I slept. The BID committee met and decided to build a tool cart, a mobile kit with brooms, bags, picker sticks, and a schedule. The barber's grandson volunteered to push it in the mornings before school. We paid him with a stipend, a card that said coordinator, and a small laminated rule on a lanyard. No filming without consent. He wore it like a badge and learned that being trusted is a warm coat. In the second building's basement, the pump did its job so well I forgot it existed for 2 weeks. Then a small beeping sprang me from my chair. The backup battery needed a new heart. Mina swapped it because she likes machines more than emails. We logged the change, dated the label, and put a spare on the shelf. The shelf made me prouder than my dashboard did. Later, a tween knocked on my office door and asked, "Can we paint the cat with a helmet on the park wall? Like, real?" I looked at the blank concrete and thought of Callaway's brand mural. I said yes with conditions. The clinic picks the day, the library picks the colors, the barber brings drop cloths, and we make the helmet the same bright color as the kiosk's rules. The kid nodded, serious. "Safety cat," he said. He drew a draft on a napkin. It had a tail like punctuation. The mural day pulled neighbors like a magnet. The cat wore a vivid helmet and an indifferent expression. Under it, in letters a child could trace, the words "ask first" and "share space." The library set out cups of water. The print shop handed out paper hats. The interpreter co-op translated "ask first" into 3 languages in neat, small lines along the border. The clinic cloaked the paint with tarps and kept a first aid kit on deck. The barber played music at a volume the cat approved. Even the roofer stopped by and nodded at the brushwork like flashing on a perfect seam. Callaway walked past, took a long look, and this I did not predict, smiled. "That's a good cat," he said. "Square beats shiny," I said. He laughed and didn't argue. Midweek, one of Nolan's competitors reached out with a white label proposal to resell Claw under their brand. The offer was neat and clean and paid on signing. It also required I not sell to their rivals. "It's only 12 months, they wrote. I wrote back one line, "I won't silo safety." They replied with a higher number. I replied with the same line. They thanked me for considering and wished me well. I filed the exchange under choices I won't regret. Kara asked to host one workshop in the print shop, how to tell a story without making a scene. The title made me wince and then nod. She kept it simple. People brought work stories and family stories and turned them into short scripts that didn't punish the speaker or the listener. "If your story needs a villain," she said, "rewrite the scene." I sat in the back and watched her hand move like a metronome when she counted beats. I felt something heal in a part of me I don't discuss with invoices. The clinic's Sunday hours drew a steady line of new clients. A night nurse with 2 jobs brought a stack of forms from a staffing agency. Claw bled red on 5 clauses. We wrote a script and circled dates. She cried from relief. She left a container of soup with nut-free written big. We ate it with gratitude. Priya invited me to speak to a small circle of accountants who wanted to build practices that didn't hide the hard parts. I showed them how we label folders so panicked people can breathe, how we timestamp emails so liars get tired, how we write consent into receipts. They stared like I'd admitted a cheat code. "This isn't new," I said. "It's just boring." "We love boring," one said, and I believed him. Felix sent a last email with subject, "Final offer, change the world." Inside, numbers, promises, a line about our platform. I didn't answer. Torres did, with a 9-word reply that made me clap in my kitchen. "We prefer to change the block. Kindly withdraw." Patrice called that night with a tone I'd never heard. "I told Felix to stop trying to buy you," she said. It made me feel embarrassed. "Thank you," I said. "You were right about the bench," she admitted. "My back liked it." "Benches are for backs," I said. "Stages are for photos." She laughed and cut it off fast, like laughter might betray her to her mirror. "Sleep well," she said. I did. The first tenant crisis came wrapped in shame. The co-op's treasurer miscounted and underpaid rent by half. She cried in my office before she told her team. "I'll make it up," she said. "Dock me, fire me, don't make us leave." I took a breath and pulled out the policy binder. Grace had a page. We had written it at the beginning for moments exactly like this. First miss gets a plan, I said. Second miss gets a penalty. Third gets a move. We build back better. She laughed through snot and handed me her ledger. I helped her close the gap with the Quiet Help Fund and a 3-month catch-up schedule that didn't punish food. She told her team herself. They didn't fire her. They hugged her shoulders and then audited the books together. The next month, the envelope had the full amount and a sticky note, on plan. I added the page to my list of sentences that saved me. Write mercy down before you need it. A city inspector flagged our second building's back stair for being 1 inch off code. 1 inch becomes a fire in a courtroom. I hired a carpenter who doesn't lie and paid him to fix it before the citation became a fine. The inspector returned, measured, nodded, and signed. Thank you for not arguing, he said. Thank you for picking a ruler, I said. Nolan requested a face-to-face. He came alone, without a deck. I wanted to say, he began, then stopped. The silence felt human. You make me look at budgets different, he said. I still like Mike's, but I can read a clause now. Good, I said. Reading is a team sport. He laughed, then looked past me at the ledger on the wall. What's next? He asked. Stairs and trees, I said. Always. He nodded, shook my hand, and left. We weren't friends. We were men who used to confuse tempo for value. Now we counted differently. The Pocket Park acquired a rumor that we'd host a Real Men Build meetup. I put a sign on the kiosk. No meetups. Bring your own chair. Share. It became our small town's policy for avoiding TED Talks. People sat. People left. The cat with the helmet watched with indifference. Kara's father sent a message through her. I watched your accountant talk. I changed my retirement fund to something that doesn't punish. Thank you. I wrote back with a smile he couldn't see. Tell your plumber she saved my block. He did. Mina shipped a feature I hadn't asked for. Call. If a clause turned red and the user froze, a button appeared with a short list of clinics, lawyers, and city offices. No ads, no traps. We vetted each resource with real calls and real notes. The page felt like a hand without a camera. The first day, 50 people tapped call and reached a voice that didn't sell them anything. Mina showed me the chart. I took a breath that tasted like all the morning light we'd earned. At the end of the month, Priya emailed a snapshot. Reserves healthy, salaries fair, taxes set, donor fund full, quiet help capped and steady. She added 3 words, her version of poetry. You can exhale. I did. Autumn edged in. Trees threw down contracts no one sues over. The cat mural wore a necklace of leaves. The clinic's Sunday tea smelled like a remedy from a calm grandmother. The library's cart squeaked in a rhythm I had learned to love. We picked a day for the building's unofficial ribbon cutting and called it Doors Open. No speakers, no podium, just rooms for people to walk through and see that rules could be kind. The morning of Doors Open, Kara arrived early with paper lanterns, markers, and a new habit I recognized. She labeled the tape. Marisol brewed 2 pots of tea and set out crackers with labels that made my heart do a small clap. Mina wired a simple visualization on a monitor in the hall. Clause red flags turned into fixed clauses over time, a quiet graph that proved slow work mattered. The interpreter co-op posted a schedule in 4 languages. The print shop stacked zines in a grid that made sense. The barber shined his chairs. The roofer brought coffee because he wanted to see if anyone would thank a roof. They did. People came without balloons. A bus driver walked through with a kid and pointed at the Ask First line, then lifted the child so he could touch the letters. A teacher brought her husband and whispered, "This is what I mean by safe." The baker dropped off trays and refused money. "This is the tithe I can stand," she said. Patrice came with quiet shoes and her hands in her pockets, like a girl who used to get in trouble for curiosity. She shook Marisol's hand. She stood under Abuela's photo and read the pull quote on the small press clipping. Wealth isn't noise. It's what your rules do when nobody is watching. She didn't cry. She didn't quip. She nodded once. Later, when we stood by the stairwell, she touched the rail and said, "I raised a daughter who liked stages. We both forgot stairs." "She remembered," I said. "You did too." Kara stood in the pocket park near the helmet cat, talking to a teen about lenses and light. "Film your hands," she said. "See what happens." The teen pointed the camera at her own fingers, lacing a shoe, and laughed at the result like a new truth. Kara glanced up and caught my eye. No ache, no need. Just a shared inventory of work. At noon, Torres arrived with a pie and a legal pad because she can't not. Priya arrived with a stack of envelopes stamped paid and left them on the clinic desk like party favors for adults. Omar brought the first run of shirts with the ledger over the heart. He handed me one and said, "This belongs to you." I shook my head. "It belongs to the person who wears it," I said. He grinned. "Spoken like a boring millionaire." Around 2, the city attorney walked the hall with the maintenance list and checked off bathrooms, lights, benches, trees. "This is what BID was supposed to buy," she said. "Turns out meetings buy it faster," I laughed. "Meetings with endings," I said. She raised a brow. "Always." Near 3, a young father stepped into my office doorway with a contract in hand. "I heard you help," he said. "I drive nights. They want to charge me if a passenger complains about my vibe." I slid a chair out and pointed to Claw. We read, we marked. We wrote 3 questions on his paper in thick pen. He practiced them aloud. He stood a bit taller. He shook my hand and said, "Thank you, Mr. Lane." "Aiden," I said, "and you did the work." Late afternoon turned gold at the edges. The clinic's tea cooled. The interpreter co-op put their kettle away. The print shop swept ink crumbs that looked like punctuation. The barber turned off the radio with a click that felt like a period. The library closed the cart with a squeak the cat mural approved. People trickled out with zines, contracts with notes, and a sense that their backs could live here. I stood in the hallway with Cara, looking at Abuela, at the ledger, at a building full of chairs that forgave, signs that told the truth, and a pump that hummed because Mina had given it a battery and a calendar. Cara touched the frame of the photo she had sent me months ago. "You became a real man," she said. No laugh, no knife. "And a real millionaire." "Both jobs were boring," I said. "Good," she said. "Keep them that way." We walked to the pocket park. The helmet cat looked out at a street that had learned how to ask and how to sit. 2 kids argued gently over chalk colors and resolved it with a swap. The bus sighed and knelt. The driver waved. I waved back. Patrice sat on a bench and didn't check her phone. Calloway walked by, saw the art, and didn't pitch an activation. Nolan crossed the street with a bag of rolls and a copy of the zine under his arm. The city felt like a ledger whose columns agreed. I thought about the rooftop and the line that had tried to brand my chest with emptiness. Be a real man. It had become a clue, not a curse. I followed it to a life with dates, receipts, and open doors. The revenge I thought I wanted had turned into a kindly policy that outlived the argument. The million I made had turned into roofs and benches and time. The man I became didn't need applause. He needed maintenance. He had it. At the kiosk, under the rules, someone had taped a small hand-lettered card. "Thank you for the clock. No signature, no tag." I smiled and pressed the tape down flat. Then I added one tiny line at the bottom, my version of a flourish, small and earned, end on time. We did. And peace, counted and scheduled, didn't feel empty at all. It felt like a room that would be there in the morning, waiting with a chair that didn't wobble, a window that held, and a cat with a helmet teaching small kids the only lesson I care to fund. Ask first, share space, keep building. Winter pressed its thumb to the city, and everything slowed enough to hear the wires hum. The clinic's tea tasted like orange peels and patience. The pump in the second building purred under a wool of cold air. I thought we were through the fights, then a new envelope arrived. Notice of intent to rezone. Mixed-use entertainment overlay. Callaway wanted a map that let content venues bloom across our block. The draft carried velvet words and steel teeth. I laid the map on the clinic table. Marisol drew a square around our two buildings. "They call us entertainment and we disappear," she said. Mina traced the legend and found the trick, an exemption line that treated community services as temporary. Temporary means easy to push. "We make ourselves permanent," I said. Torres arrived with her legal pad and her smile that meant a plan. "Deed covenants," she said. "You can tie values to the land. Bathrooms, benches, consent, quiet hours, clinic, library, write them into the dirt. Anyone who buys after you inherits the rule book." "It's irreversible?" I asked. "As close as paper gets," she said. I called Priya. "Can the numbers live with that?" I asked. "They'll sleep better," she said. "It will make your buildings worth less to bad buyers and worth more to the people you want." We wrote covenants like vows. Ask before filming on premises. No conversion to content venue without unanimous tenant consent. Quiet hours posted in 32-point font. Maintain public bathrooms tied to the pocket park for the life of the property. Clinic or legal aid on site at least 2 days a week. Library classroom protected. We added enforcement. If someone broke the rules, a penalty fed the Quiet Help Fund and the city's tree budget. Torres filed the papers and circled the recording number in blue. I held the copy and felt the page weigh more than its grams. At the rezoning hearing, the chair asked for comment. Callaway's team spoke in arcs and renderings. I spoke in nouns and dates. "These covenants are recorded," I said, handing the clerk a stamped copy. "They attach to 2 parcels and won't let a future owner call my clinic a stage." Kara stood behind me and said one sentence for the record. "Please stop naming our care content." The room stayed quiet the way a jury stays quiet when a clean line lands. The map passed with edges trimmed. Our square sat like a stubborn tile the overlay couldn't claim. Patrice texted me a photo from the meeting. My finger on the covenant, her thumbs up small and honest. Later she called. "What you did is elegant," she said. "Mean without meanness." "Just paperwork," I said. "The kind that holds." That night I walked both buildings. The pumps, the locks, the signs, the chairs, the lantern in the library. Everything felt secured to a future bigger than me. Revenge had found its final shape. Not a headline, but a recorded book at the county office, a clerk's stamp, an index number a developer can't charm. The irony tasted clean. The very overlay Callaway thought would brand the block instead forced me to carve our values into the deed. On my desk, under Abuela's photo, I wrote a line I wanted to see when I got tired. If they move the map, move the law. The company Nolan worked for swallowed another firm and choked. He asked to meet, not in a glass tower but at the pocket park, which told me this wasn't a pitch. He arrived with a paper bag of rolls and a face that held more sleep than last year. "We fired the guy who hid clauses," he said. "We posted the red flags by default. We made the no hidden edits rule a policy. Our lawyers hate you. Our creators stay." "Good," I said. He stared at the helmet cat and shook his head like a man finally hearing a song's words. "I thought money was a spotlight," he said. "Turns out it's a thermostat." "Keep rooms at a temperature where people don't burn," I said. He laughed. "You'd make a terrible keynote," he said. "And a great manual." He handed me an envelope. Inside, a letter on company letterhead giving creators the right to export their contracts and lists without penalty in human-readable format. I whistled, low. "Who wrote this?" I asked. "I did," he said. "Then I fought 3 executives and 2 lawyers and the ghost of my own ego." "Proud of your spine," I said. He rolled his eyes like he didn't need my praise, and also a little did. Mina joined us with a sketch of Nest V3, a feature called Mirror that showed creators what a clause would look like if it were mutual. "Sometimes they can't imagine fairness," she said. "We'll show it." Nolan watched her explain and nodded like a student. "We'll pay for that," he said. "Full price. No carve-outs." "Now you're talking," Mina said. Back on the block, the Interpreter Co-op asked to host a clinic night for neighbors navigating immigration forms. We moved tables, set tea, kept the door propped, and printed signs in 4 languages. A teenager translated for her aunt with a tenderness that made the air feel thick. The clinic stayed late and ended on time because rules are mercy when mouths are tired. Kara brought her father to see the covenants posted on the bulletin board in the hall. He read every line, tracing the text with his finger like a kid learning letters. "They can't take this away," he said, half ask, half prayer. "They can try," I said. "The clerk will be tired of them by page 1. He laughed, a sound I had never heard from him before, soft and grateful. "Be a real man," he said, smiling, "and buy better paper for the bulletin board." I did. That week, we received the maintenance schedule for the Pocket Park bathrooms with the city's seal at the top and penalties listed at the bottom. It was the prettiest thing I'd read all month. I framed it beside the kiosk and underlined every day at 6 a.m. with Kara's chalk. The next morning, a worker arrived with a mop and a tired whistle. It sounded like morning deciding to be kind. Late, I sat in my office and watched a light snow make the cat mural wear a new hat. My phone buzzed. "Priya, numbers are boring, I'm thrilled." I wrote back, "Keep them dull." She sent a heart, then a gavel. I ended the day with a sentence that felt like a roof. Pride is loud. Proof is an index number. Spring brought color and a request that could have pierced if I hadn't healed. Kara asked to introduce me to someone she was seeing. "He's steady," she said, smiling in a way I recognized in my own mirror. We met at the Pocket Park. His name was Amir. He was a civil engineer who talked about bridges like people. He shook my hand properly and didn't try to sell me anything. He admired the kiosk, took a picture of the maintenance schedule, and asked if the bench bolts were stainless. I liked him by the second question. Kara looked at me for a verdict I didn't owe, and also did. "Good choice," I said. She breathed out, then laughed at herself for needing air from me. Growth is messy. We ate rolls and talked about anti-icing agents and chalk art. When they left, she squeezed my shoulder once, the old way, with new meaning, not ownership, gratitude. That same week, Patrice sent me a photo from a board meeting. She had stood up and said benches into a mic that used to love her most when she said brand. The caption under her image read, "Maintenance first." She wrote, "I stole your line." I replied, "Pay it back in bathrooms." She sent a receipt, literally, 5-year pledge. Square beats shiny in her own pen. Nolan called to say he was leaving his company. "I want to start something that doesn't punish," he said. "No panels, no predators. A boring shop that fixes contracts and pays vendors on time. Any advice?" "Write your no first," I said. "File it. Then hire a Priya and a Torres." "I can't afford them," he said. "You can't afford not to," I said. He did. 6 months later, he sent a holiday card with a photo of his tiny team in front of a whiteboard that read, "Ship Ethics." On the back, in blue ink, "Paid everyone on time." I pinned it under Abuela. We hosted a quiet gala for the clinic. No stage, no auctioneer, no dinner. Just an open house with envelopes labeled tea, chairs, staff, copy paper. People put checks in the envelopes they liked. The copy paper envelope filled first. That felt exactly right. As we closed, a woman in a green coat stood in my office doorway with a manila folder and eyes that had carried too many forms. "I came because my kid saw your cat," she said, half smile. "He said you help adults read." We sat, marked, called, filed. We didn't fix everything. We made the panic smaller. She left a plant on my desk with a tag that said, "Low light." It lived. That night I wrote one small prayer in my book, addressed not to heaven, but to habit. Keep me dull and funded. Summer hit, and with it a blackout, the length of a long story. Heat snapped lines across 3 neighborhoods. Generators screamed like bad deals. Our blocks went dark at noon. We had practiced. Mina rolled out the dark plan. Battery for the pump, ice in coolers, handwritten signs, closed, but call this number, a paper list of emergency contacts taped to the kiosk, a whistle on the clinic desk. The interpreter co-op posted a note, "We will call you back." The library wheeled the cart to the pocket park and became a shade station with water and books. The barber opened his door for air and set out spray bottles like gifts. The baker gave away the last trays before the dough spoiled. The clinic set up a folding table under the helmet cat and did intake by clipboard. Kara filmed hands only passing water, writing forms, adjusting fans, screwing the walk light back into place when power hiccuped once. Calloway came by with a generator on a cart and a smile shaped like saving face. "We can brand this," he said. "Community resilience." "Thank you," I said and pointed to the maintenance schedule he'd funded. "Brand that! On time!" He looked at the line. Something like respect crossed his face, and he set the generator by the clinic without a sticker. He left with a nod. People change. Sometimes slower than roofs. The blackout lasted 9 hours. No one died, no one looted, no one filmed a fight to make a point. A kid drew a chalk arrow to the water station and wrote free. When the lights returned, a cheer rose. Not loud, just relieved. We clapped twice, the block's odd ritual now. The pump caught and hummed like a beast fed. I went inside and cried once, quick, at the sink where no one could see. Then I wrote the blackout into our binder with times, names, fixes, and the sentence that matters most afterward. What will we do better next time? Answer: more batteries, more shade, more paper signs in 4 languages, a hand-crank fan, and a second cooler. We bought them the next morning. Priya moved a little more to the reserve. The donor fund reimbursed the baker for the trays she gave away. We slept. A week later, the city sent a summary. Neighborhoods handled heat with low incident rates. Pocket Park restroom schedule maintained despite outage. They attached a photo of the kiosk in the dark with a flashlight rubber banded to the top. Tiny things, squared, make a city survive. The journalist who'd written the careful piece called to ask if we wanted follow-up coverage. "No," I said. "Write about the grid crews. And the clinic down south that stayed open with a garden hose and grit." She did. I donated quietly to their quiet help. A year after the rooftop, we held doors open again. No speeches, no mics. The kiosk got a new coat of paint. The helmet cat wore sunglasses someone chalked on. The clinic brewed tea. The library sharpened pencils. The interpreter co-op posted a calendar. The barber oiled chairs. The print shop stacked fresh zines. Write Mercy down. Mina set a screen that showed a slow river of red flags turning gray over 12 months. It looked like weather improving. I added one last thing. A frame on the hall wall holding the deed covenants, the maintenance schedule, and a short letter addressed to whoever owns these buildings after me. You inherit rooms, not revenue. You inherit rules and people. If you break the rules, the city gets trees, the clinic gets cash, and the paper will tell on you. If you keep them, the block will hold you, and on time. Kara arrived with Amir. They set out a small box of bread labeled fresh, not artisanal. Patrice came alone and sat on the bench without posture. Nolan brought his team and a binder labeled "No Hidden Edits." Calloway walked through with his hands in his pockets and didn't pitch me a mural. He pointed at the bathroom schedule, tapped the time, and said, "We paid today." I said, "We noticed." We both smiled like men who finally understood the game worth playing. Midday, the city clerk stopped by with the recording book. She opened to the page with our covenants and let people see the ink. "This is the part that counts," she said. "Not the post, not the panel, the book." Kids stared like she'd shown them a secret door. She had. A young couple approached me with a lease that didn't punish and a baby that looked like a promise. "We want to rent the corner for a daycare," they said. 2 rooms, quiet hours, Shoes off. We'll add a bench with little shoes under it. I gave them the application and a smile I didn't have last year. Read the rules, I said. If you can love them, you can have the room. Afternoon leaned gold. The clinic stamped received in a slow rhythm. The barber laughed once, loud, then soft again. The librarian closed the cart. The interpreter co-op boiled the kettle one last time. Mina shut off the screen. I turned the hall lights down to the evening setting. Cara joined me at the window by Abuela. So, she said, real man? Real millionaire? Real maintenance worker? I said. She nudged my shoulder. Real boring, she said. Boring bought a block, I said. We stood there with the sound of the pump below, and the bus sighing at the curb, and the city doing 1,000 tiny adult things that never land on a stage. The rooftop existed in my memory like a closed book on a shelf. Important, finished, not for every day. The line she threw like a blade, be a real man, had become a trowel. I used it to set bricks. The blade dulled. The wall stood. Before we locked up, I took the pen from my pocket and added one small line at the bottom of the kiosk rules, just above end on time. Rest is allowed. I drew a tiny cat helmet beside it because the block deserved one joke. We turned the key. The hall sighed. The pocket park glowed. The bus knelt. People went home to rooms with rules and chairs that forgave. I walked to my door with steady ankles and a ledger under my arm, names, dates, receipts, and a promise made of paper and kept with hands. Peace didn't feel like winning. It felt like shelves put upright, a lock that turns, a roof that doesn't lie, and a future written in a book anybody can read. That was enough. And when I set the pen down, it didn't clatter. It fit.